Lois Mailou Jones was born in Boston, Massachusetts. She was an American painter and educator, and she made art in different styles, from traditional landscape to African-themed abstraction. From an early age, she expressed an interest and talent in the arts. Her parents were very encouraging of her artistic pursuits, and she attended a high school that focused on the arts as well as colleges of art and design. When she graduated from college, she began teaching. She was hired to establish an art program at Palmer Memorial Institute, which is a Black preparatory school in North Carolina. Within 2 years, her students' exhibits were so good, they attracted the attention of people at Howard University in Washington, D.C. She became a professor at Howard University in 1930. Lois Mailou Jones liked to explore different artistic styles. She spent many summers in France painting landscapes and street scenes. She loved the freedom she found there from racial prejudice. In much of her art, you can see influences from Africa and Haiti, but also from the Harlem Renaissance, which was a cultural revival of African American art happening in Harlem, New York during the time of her life. The Harlem Renaissance was a time when Black artists expressed their pride in their African heritage and started telling their story through creative expression. Lois Mailou Jones is best remembered for her abstract, African-influenced artwork. She painted more paintings in this style as she grew older. She served on the Howard University faculty for 47 years, and she passed away at the age of 92. Now we're going to make our own art inspired by Lois Mailou Jones. All you need is a piece of paper, a ruler, a pencil, an eraser, and a Sharpie. Now we are going to color this in, but you can use whatever you have to color it in. I got colored pencils here, pastels, maybe some paints, markers. I think I'm going to use colored pencils this time, but you can use whatever you feel like or whatever you have on hand. Just keep in mind, if you do decide to use watercolor paint, you will need watercolor paper or a paper that can handle water. If you use acrylic paints, you'll probably want to use a canvas or canvas paper. So keep that in mind before we get started and make sure you're working with the right kind of material. First thing we're going to do is divide our paper up into different sections so we can add our patterns in there. I'm using the width of my hand and just holding it right over the top of my paper, and that's where I'm going to put my first line right across my page. I am using my pencil and my ruler so I get nice straight lines. From here, I'm going to divide this top section into 3 separate parts. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take this bottom part and I'm going to divide it in half, doing a line straight down the middle of my page. Now this section over on the left, I'm going to divide that in half now. So it's almost like I have 2 squares over on the left and then a big long rectangle. So before I started this project, I looked at a lot of Google images of Lois Mailou Jones artwork, and I found some elements and I just kind of drew them on note cards. Now you do not have to do this if you're doing this at home. This is like a big step. You can just look at some of her artwork and find your own elements to add in here, or you can use some of the ones that I found. But yeah, this is great if you're doing this project with the classroom. They can use these note cards to kind of imagine what patterns they want to put where in their artwork. It kind of gives you somewhere to start. So I think I have a good idea of where I want to go with this piece. So I have all of my little inspiration pieces here. I'm going to put them off to the side so I can use them for reference. I'm going to pick up my pencil and start drawing each pattern into the separate sections. We are going to be going over all these pencil lines with a Sharpie, so you don't want to add too much detail with the pencil. We want to save all that hard work for later. So you see with my swirly, I'm just adding the swirl, and the rest I'm going to do with the Sharpie. You can also add extra little guidelines in there if that'll help you out. You can see when I did my triangle on the bottom left, I added a line in the middle, and I did the same thing with my diamond. So in some cases, if you're trying to make something symmetrical, it might help to add a little line right through the middle of your section just to help you stay symmetrical. You can also embellish your artwork as much as you'd like. I noticed that I had a little extra space here in the middle, so I added some little diamonds right along that line just to make my art a little more interesting. You can also adjust the patterns as much as you want, or even add more than one pattern in a box if you want to. Just be creative and make it your own. Now that I got my pencil sketch on there just the way I like it, I'm going to go ahead and pick up my black Sharpie and go over all those pencil lines that I want to keep. So now I'm picking up my ruler to go over the lines that separate the sections with my Sharpie. And the next thing I'm going to do is just add little bits of contrast by filling in certain sections with black. So when I was looking at it, I just felt like it needed a little more drama. So I filled in certain areas with black just to make it look nice and balanced. Now that I have my Sharpie lines on there just the way I like them, I'm going to pick up my eraser and get rid of all of those pencil lines. No one needs to know that those were there. You always want to do this before you start coloring in, because once you add paint or colored pencils or pastels on top, you're not going to be able to get out any pencil marks. So it's really important to do that before you color your drawing. So like I said before, you can use whatever you have to color this in. I'm going to use my colored pencils today. And the first thing I like to do is pick my color palette. Now I was looking at some art from Lois Mailou Jones, and I noticed that she has a lot of yellow, like a bright orangey red. She's got some bright blues and bright greens, as well as like this little mustard color that I saw in some of her artwork. So that's what I decided to make my color palette. So no matter what you're using, you just want to be thoughtful and take a moment to think about what colors you want in your drawing. And this is going to make your drawing look a lot better and more unified. And it also makes just decision making easier when you're coloring, because you kind of have just a couple to pick from instead of a whole box of colored pencils to pick from. So here I have my color scheme picked out, and you can see I'm filling in each section a different colored background, and I'm adding as much color as I can to each little pattern. Once you're done adding all those fun colors in there, you are all done with your project. Thank you so much for watching this video and following along. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good week.